Welcome to the Total Podcast. Total Training Provision's very first podcast, which we are actually recording. Today we've got some great people that are on the actual podcast with me today. We're going to have Lisa, who's the Managing Director of Total Training Provision, and we also have Amanda, who is our Quality Manager. And some really great topics that we're going to talk about, dyslexia and a bit about the background of Total Training Provision. So stay tuned. We have an amazing podcast for you today. Welcome to the very first podcast of the Total Podcast, TTP. We are Total Training Provision, and what we're doing is looking at the journey of Total today. We've got the wonderful Lisa, who is the MD of Total with us today. I'm Will Burns. I'm one of the lead skills coaches here at Total. And yeah, we're just going to introduce and go through what we do within Total. What we're going to do in each episode for this is our very first one, so do bear with us. There are going to be twerks and there are going to be little kinks to work out. There's going to be some twerks, not on the wall,
ask me to
but there's going to be a couple of kinks we'll need to work out, but we can only work them out as we go. All I've got is like me like that on the wall now. No, I'm not. I wouldn't be able to do it. That's an outflank, by the way. But what we're going to be doing on each episode, we're going to be talking about industry updates. We're going to look at educational trends, looking at experiences from learners, from employers, and so much more. There's so many different things that we look at in terms of Total topics and all sorts. So very welcome, and thank you ever so much for being on the first one, Lisa.
Yeah, not a problem. No pressure at all, everyone. My first ever podcast.
I think it's nice it being raw. I think it's nice, just getting the sense of the organisation. So that's for me. And excuse the Manc accent, by the way. So
we'll allow you in town. It's absolutely fine.
But no, thanks ever so much. So in terms of the listeners and the learners that are listening to the podcast, can you just tell us little bit about Total? What your vision is as the MD? What's your mission with Total Training Provision?
Yeah, if I kind of start back to me personally and my kind of educational journey, that'll kind of set places to why my thoughts are as they are today. So I don't mind saying how old I am. I'm 42, went to school in the 90s, and let's be honest, careers advice wasn't particularly great. No. You were encouraged to go to college and then university. And I think I can remember my mum saying things to me like, infant school teachers had said, oh, she's university material. How the hell can you tell that when someone's in infants? No idea. But that were kind of drilled into me. I was going to be the first person to go to university in our family. And there's a lot of pressure that comes with that. So when it got to GCSE times, I had a little bit of a mini breakdown. Yeah. I couldn't cope with the pressure of the actual exams themselves. So my teachers and I had to come up with a bit of a strategic plan of me to focus my revision on subjects I enjoyed, rather than just going for any old subject to get the grades I needed. Fortunately, that plan didn't work. So when I got my GCSE results and I needed 5 GCSEs at grade C, I only got 4.
Right, okay.
Ended up going to college, doing 2 A-levels in something I didn't want to do.
Yeah.
No one spoke to me about what the courses were about. I just signed up because that was what was expected. And I had to retake my maths GCSE. So I finished college, did the first year of college, and then decided after a grandparent had a brush with cancer that I wanted to be a nurse.
Yeah.
And there were no spaces on the actual nursing access course, so I went to do a BTEC, a level 3 in health and social care, because I was advised that would get me onto the nursing pathway at university.
Yeah.
During that, I had the best 2 years. It was absolutely my style of learning. I made brilliant friends. We did holidays. We went to Italy. We did an exchange programme where we looked at how their social care system worked against England. And it was quite practical in elements, including work placement. So we had to go out and work in different settings. So that could be a nursery setting, a setting for people with SEN needs. It was an elderly care setting. It was all different. So from that, I changed what I wanted to do. I didn't want to be a nurse anymore. I wanted to be a social worker.
Nice.
So that's what I wanted to do. I got a place at Huddersfield University, got a guaranteed place, and off to university I popped. Started in the September. By the Christmas, I'd had a breakdown. I'd had to be put on anxiety medication because the reality of what university was and the expectations that were placed upon me were not kind of, one, it wasn't conducive to how I learnt compared to the course I'd just been on. And there was this intense pressure that I'd put on myself really in terms of, I've got to do this, I've got to achieve this. Why is it that I'm sitting in this lecture with 200 other people and I don't understand it? It's not kind of sinking in.
But that's it. That's the expectations, a big part, and you said about the well-being side of things. I think they're getting a lot better now in terms of the well-being, but back then when we were going through school, it was tough.
It wasn't talked about.
There was just a couple of bits that you said, like your learning style. So in terms of your learning style, how did you learn best? What was the best way you found that you learn?
By shadowing people, seeing it in action, and then having a go at something. I am your typical kinesthetic learner.
100%,
so if there's a set of instructions to read for a set of IKEA drawers, I will not read the instructions. I will have a go, much to my husband's annoyance. I will probably break it, but then the next set of drawers will come to build. I'll have learnt from my mistakes on that.
Yeah.
And I think that's what was kind of paramount for me at Total, that there are different ways to learn and to gain skills and to progress in your career without having to go to university. Yeah. Just because maths isn't your strong point does not mean that you're never going to achieve anything and you shouldn't be able to be a CEO, a director, whatever you want to be. If you've got the desire and the will to want to do it, then the world should be your oyster.
Love that. Like, because I'm a big advocate of that mindset. Massive advocate of it myself. And for me, like, if you look at the world's greats, Albert Einstein, he was dyscalcular and dyslexic.
Absolutely.
If you look at Henry Ford, dropped out at school, 3rd grade or something like that, and now I think you can't even see a car without every 2 minutes. Do you know what I mean? They belt the world.
Yeah.
You know. The guy who created the telephone, you know, he didn't go on to any further schooling. No. So I love that aspect, and it was just going to bring me back to the GCSE side of things as well. And I think for me, like, I'm exactly the same. I'm a kinesthetic learner. I was exactly the same in terms of, you show me how to do something once, I'll do it forever.
Yeah.
But for me, it was like in school, it was very much around memory. If you had a great memory, you came away with great GCSEs. And it was about sort of trying to figure out ways to enhance my memory. So I never revised for my GCSEs.
This is where you're going to tell me you got A stars.
No. I had to sort of go back and redo my English because I am dyslexic myself. So I had to sort of really focus on my English, and I had to go to a summer school and stuff like that to try to bust it up to a C. But for me, I think this is the beauty of what we do in the training world. I think taking young people from school who may have been seen as inclusive learners or anything like that, who struggled to be able to move them forward and progress them in life. So that's something that really hit home for me, what you just said there, in terms of you can be, it's that be, do, have, be who you need to be, do what you need to do, and have what you want to have. So no, I absolutely love that. Thank you ever so much.
No problem.
So in terms of yourself then, so how did Total come about then?
So Total came about, so as you're aware, listeners, you might not be, the company was actually founded by my dad, Paul, and originally Total was a lead generation business. My dad had a background in mechanical engineering, so he dealt a lot with large goods vehicles, passenger service vehicles, and whilst he was out servicing his customers, a lot of them started to ask him about a qualification called driver CPC, and that was a new European directive that came in. Another family member was in training, my mum actually, so because of those ties, people used to come to my dad all the time, what do we do about this, what do we do about that? So my dad became a bit of an expert on driver CPC and what you needed, rules, regulations, and he set up a lead generation business, and that kind of snowballed due to and I'm going to say this because I'm biased, but due to his personality and the nature that he had, he made lots of connections and lots of networking opportunities until he started to move into other areas. So people come to me about apprenticeships, who can you send me on to for this, or short courses. And it was actually a provider, an adult social care provider in Chesterfield, that he'd gone to see. They were interested in apprenticeships, and she loved his ethos.
Yeah.
She'd never met a salesperson, if you like, who kind of spoke about the quality of what training and learning should do, how it should impact that person, and how it impacts the business.
Yeah.
The kind of do's and don'ts and what's involved. And she loved his passion. She asked him straight up, I want you to deliver the training. And at that time, he was point blank. Everybody makes fun of me, but he was like, no. I do this impression all the time. No, that's not for us. And he said, I work with some, Ofsted recognised providers. Let me send them in and obviously have you pick from those. He sent them in, and within 2 days, she rung him back and said, absolutely not. None of them have spoken as passionately about you as you did, and I know you will ensure that I have got the best service. I want you to get a trainer and to deliver that for me. So realistically, the plan was he was just going to service that one client and carry on his lead generation. Where I'd worked previously, I'd started 22 years ago as an unqualified skills coach in retail, and I'd got to my previous role. I was director of operations. The managing directors were very hands-on in the business. There was no more growth for me. I'd kind of gone where I needed to go, and it was actually over a Sunday lunch conversation where I was like, come and work for me. Let's set this up together. And you're like, oh, really? But no, we discussed it, we'd made some plans, and then when I joined April the 5th, 2015, that's when Total Training Provision turned into a training provider rather than lead generation. And then we've never really looked back since. We'd had really good conversations about direction of travel, what we wanted to do it for. So we identified very quickly our why. So what was important to us, and the key for us is having an impact on the people that we work with. We're not about bums on seats. I want to sleep at night. I want our guys to enjoy their job and get that buzz. There is nothing finer than knowing that you have positively impacted someone's life, that they've got a pay rise at work, they've got a new job, they've learnt new skills because of you. That's just phenomenal. You can't buy that.
No, you can't.
And yeah, that was it really. And then unfortunately Dad passed away early 2016, and then full thrust into the managing director role. And here I am.
So, but that's it. But again, it's such an inspirational story. It's such an inspirational story because, and this is why I like sort of building on what you said, like, struggling in school, struggling through the education system yourself. You've then been able to turn that on its head, go into the actual sector itself, and now if anyone's watching or anyone's listening wanting to do that, you're an inspiration to them. Do you know what I mean? So that for me is,
Thank you.
But that's the beauty of what we do in this industry.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it. We take people forward, we move people forward, and
Absolutely.
particularly the people who might have slipped through the net through schools or anything like that still have an opportunity.
Absolutely.
And it's like, so for example, I was on site a couple of weeks ago, and there was a learner that was 17 that was registered as homeless, and his saving grace was an apprenticeship.
Yeah.
Because he was an apprenticeship in a warehouse. That was his saving grace.
Yeah.
And that's at 17 years old. And it's just stories like that which I absolutely love. But that's the impact of it as well. Absolute impact of it.
Yeah.
So what do you feel then makes Total Training Provision different to other training providers?
I think for us, the fact that we're not a national provider, we're relatively small. We've got 72 employees, but for me, it's about our ability to be agile and to really look at what people want and desire, rather than trying to get something off the shelf and shove it into fit. You know, we will look at where we can bespoke programs. We will look at someone's problem and create that solution. And if it's something we can't do, we will hold our hands up and say, listen, we're not the experts at that, but let us tell you this person, that person, and that person is, and they've got really good recommendations and reputations. Let me pass you on to them. So we've got quite good relationships with a few providers now where we refer learners onto them because we identify that actually they're the specialists in that area. Yeah. We're not. Something that I will say, and I'm sure every MD of every organisation says this, but one of our USPs, I have to say, is our people, it's our team. So everybody likes to say it's a family. It's not a family, because sometimes with families you have to put up with people you don't like. You're forced together in a family. This is a dream team. Yeah. So this is a group of like-minded individuals that want to make that impact, that want to make that difference, and together we're equals. We talk about, you know, how we can do this together. Nothing's forced upon people. It's not the Lisa Hawksby show, it's the Total Training Provision show. Yeah. And I want everybody on the journey. One of the sayings that my dad used to say, in his lovely Broad Barnsley accent, may you rest in peace, was what you get out, what you put in is what you get out. Absolutely. So the more you put in, the more you're going to get out of something, and I truly believe in that. So the more I put into our team and our people, the more the people using our services are going to get out of it. And that, you know, it's absolutely spot on what you're saying in terms of, like, I'm a big believer in that saying as well myself, what you reap is what you sow. Absolutely. And it's about putting that effort in, that effort into, you know, not just, I believe in karma as well. So I'm reading a book currently, I've read it about 4 times, called Karmic Management. Right. Great book to read, by the way, if anyone, just a bit of enrichment if anyone wants to read it. But that's about how wanting to make other people successful and everyone that you come in contact with comes around full circle and makes you more successful and stuff like that. So it's such a great principle, and that's exactly what you've just been talking about in terms of the effort that you put into people, like into others, comes back and obviously makes the company a lot more successful and things like that. So as the MD then, what advice would you give someone who wanted to either start their own business or wanted to be an MD of a business? Don't do it.
I knew that.
Be prepared for sleepless nights. No, I think, now, let's be honest, I was thrust into this role, so it was a very steep learning curve. Have I made mistakes along the way? 100%, yes, I have. I think you've got to be resilient. Yeah. So you've got to understand that nobody gets up out of bed in the morning and thinks, pardon my French, I'm going to come and do a shit job today. Nobody thinks that. So it's about being resilient and looking for opportunities and not putting barriers down. So looking for ways for things to happen and not being a negative Nelly and this isn't going to happen for that. Sometimes whatever plans you put in place work brilliantly. Other times they don't. It's always good to have a plan A, a plan B and a plan C. particularly in the industry that we're working in. We're working with government funding, we're working with other stakeholders that sometimes have a control on how we do things and why we do things, and that's out of our control. Be as proactive as you can. Don't be reactive. Look at what's going on around you. Talk to people, network with people, horizon scan as much as you can. Read and read and read again. Get journals, get, podcasts of the people who inspire you. Look on certain social media pages if you want and follow certain people. There's some great tips out there, and some of them take 10 minutes. But I think the biggest thing of all is you're never going to stop learning. No. You will never stop learning in this job. No. You won't. And you've got to be open to that and change.
Absolutely agree. And I think with there's a couple of amazing points that you said there. I think one thing that really stood out for me then was the fact of a mentor. Having a mentor to look up to and aspire to. It doesn't have to be a physical person. It doesn't have to be someone who sits next to you and going, this is where you need to go. It could be a skills coach. It could be It could be a manager of a skills coach. It could be a podcast, like you said. It could be reading a book. All these are, so for me, one of my mentors, because I'm a life coach as well. So one of my mentors was Bob Proctor.
All right.
And I've never met the guy. I used to watch his podcast, but I learned a lot of his mindset and how he worked through his books, like you said. And just read. And being dyslexic, my mum would tell you, she used to swear that I'd never pick up a book, like never. And the first book I actually read was when my little girl was born, was a Peppa Pig book from cover to cover. That was the first book I fully read.
Classy read.
And, absolutely. And then since then, I've probably read, and my little girl was born in 2016, so since 2016 I've probably read about 420 odd books.
Wow.
And not small books either, like big books.
Big boy books. Yeah.
Big boy. Yeah, not just sort of Peppa Pig and Peter Rabbit and stuff like that. Actual big boy books.
Yeah.
But again, since I started reading, it was my whole knowledge expanded to be able to help people, support people a lot better, and things like that. So I completely.
Well done. That's amazing.
But it's exactly. It's just other stories that relates to yours, and what you're saying is absolutely spot on. And another point that you pointed out was resilience. So just a question, what sort of things do you do to help with your resilience?
So for me, I do a lot of reflecting, and that's one of the skills that I got from being a skills coach, really. So when you're doing your teaching, you do lots of models of reflection. So you come and you look at the session that you've done, and could I have done that better? What would have worked? So you do lots of reflecting. So one of the things that I do now is, I've had to learn, is I try not to take things personally now, because nothing's personal about me. This is a business, and what I do is I reflect upon that. So actually, that didn't go to plan. That doesn't mean that I have to get myself down in the dumps and beat myself up about it. Let's reflect on that situation. So what could have been done better? What worked? Was it a system fault? Was it a person fault? Was I at fault? What happened there? And actually, what can I put into action for next time so that I can make sure that doesn't happen? And that then motivates me more to say, well, right, pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and let's go again. Because I think sometimes it's so easy to get dragged down into the kind of quagmire of what's going off, and this is going bad and that's going bad. When actually, like I said, not everything's going bad. You don't get up in the morning and think, I'm going to come and do a crap job today.
No,
you don't. Sometimes things happen, and it's about sometimes riding those waves and moving on. Like I said, I've had to do a lot of that, and I will admit I was the world's worst for holding grudges. But life's not worth it. I think I read something the other day where it was on LinkedIn actually. So if you've got £86,640 in your bank and someone steals £10 off you, are you really going to be bothered? No. So why, if someone puts 10 seconds into your day, why is that going to then spoil the rest of those 23 hours and 50 minutes? So it's just about putting everything into context. You can overcome anything if you want to.
Absolutely agree. I love that, and it is. But again, you're showing that the reflection and learning. So, like for me, something that I always like to talk about is the fact that we have different fears, fear of failure, fear of rejection, and things like that. And this is where our reactions are stemmed from.
Absolutely, yeah.
And when we're looking at like our reactions to people, like feedback is something for me that's really important, because I always say, negative feedback, what do we do from it? We listen to it, we learn, move forward. When we get positive feedback, what do? We listen to it, we learn and move forward.
Yeah.
So there's no positive and negative when it comes to feedback. It's exactly the same with reflection, taking that self-feedback and listening to it and incorporating it into your day, you improve. And that's how, like you said, it's a key to resilience, absolute key to resilience. So going to look into a little bit of our learners and employers now, if that's all right. Thanks ever so much for that first section. I absolutely love that. I love the inspiration behind it. I really do. I get excited. This is when we talk with my hands. I'm like,
gesticulating.
Yeah. I'm a hands talk. I'm like,
there's nothing wrong.
So what sort of success stories? So if there was a couple of success stories that you could think of off the cuff, what sort of success stories would you like to share with us? What sort of things can you think of?
So one straight off the bat, we had a programme called Forging Ahead. So this was a programme in which we worked with men who had just been released from prison.
Yep.
And the idea was they came onto a 3-4 week programme with us for us to move them into work. Now there's a couple of successes on this programme, to be fair. So one, to be able to come into a classroom environment with a bunch of guys who basically all left school early doors, got into gang life, whatever, and to see them all in tears with each other, listening to each other's stories and having that kind of comfortable space to talk about what was their route way to offending and what can they do to not have that happen. There's some truly kind of tragic stories out there, and it makes you realise as an individual that a lot of the things that happen is because it's a trauma that's happened, and that's why people then resort to that. The other thing from that programme was, and obviously I can't mention any names, but there was a pretty substantial drug dealer who had spent a long time in prison.
Right, okay.
He was very renowned in certain areas, and his why was because he'd missed his children growing up. So this is how long he'd actually spent in prison. To then get phone calls from this guy who not only got himself a job, we supported him in this job, we worked with this employer, it was one of the volunteer options that we got. Yeah. He then rung up and said, oh my God, they've given me the keys to a van. They're letting me have a van for work. And we're like, well done, that's absolutely awesome. He was buzzing. A few months later, got a phone call, he was applying for his own mortgage based on the work and the job that he was doing. Now, don't get me wrong, the money he earned before as a drug dealer far outweighed what he earned now, but he'd gone straight. He was with his family, he'd built relationships with his kids, he was doing an honest day's work and felt like he was rewarding his family, he could spend that time. Now, to be involved in that and to have given that guy those skills, to have made the links with that employer, so he's gone and done that, wow, that were just
again, it goes right back
phenomenal.
It goes right back to the start, what you said, like anyone can do like anything they put their mind to, and that's a point, that's a full stop right there. Do you know what I mean? That's a point proven, which is an absolute amazing stuff. I've got goosebumps about that. So, but that's a real difference. That's a real difference in not just not just a crime rate, not just a tick in a box. That's someone's life. That has been impacted for the positive. But
no more reoffending, links with families, and I think that's a big thing, isn't it? When you're coming back into and rehabilitating into society, sometimes those family links have gone, that support has gone. To know that we're there to support that person means anything. And I've got hats off, credit to the tutors that, the skills coaches, they absolutely, pulled a blinder with that one, because that was brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
That's it, and it's all going back to the mission that we spoke about earlier. Everyone's on that same pathway to make that difference and the vision that your dad had and your vision that you had. It's all part and parcel of the steering. You know, you can't steer a truck without a without a wheel.
Absolutely.
You know? So
Yeah.
So what are some of the challenges that you feel that you've overcome then when it's come with either learners, anything that's been in total?
COVID, 1,000,000,000% COVID. So to begin with, we had a bit of a growth spurt, if I'm honest. So in terms of some of the programs that we delivered, we had learners and employees coming to us left and right, which meant that we had to grow. We had to get new skills coaches and managers. But one of the issues that came with that was people were coming to us because they'd been made redundant somewhere else.
Yeah.
We were a stopgap.
Right. Okay.
So then retention of staff became difficult because there'd been a team manager where they were before. They'd come to us as a skills coach. They wanted to go back to being a manager. Also, health and social care, which was our biggest sector at the time, just suffered so badly through COVID. To be having to try and progress on an apprenticeship with a member of staff who was breaking down on you because they've worked 100 hours a week. You weren't a skills coach anymore, you were a shoulder to cry on. And that was tough for everybody. The infrastructure that we'd got just simply could not support what we had. So I had to make the really difficult decision of partnering with another organisation and asking them if they'd like to take our whole occupancy, because their infrastructure, their support systems, they were a big national provider. They could support these learners. Now, as a managing director, that is a tough pill to swallow, because one, financially, that was tough in an already tough time. But two, what that did to my qualification achievement rates, it put them in the toilet.
That it did.
And then when you're blasted around on certain lists on LinkedIn that you're one of the lowest ones on there, and you want to come out fighting and say, well, actually, I transferred over like 500 learners to another provider, so that's why, and I've done it for the best reason, so those learners have the best journey. That was difficult, and trying to overcome that has been hard. We've done it though. We've reshaped the business. We've really looked at what we want to deliver and why, and what impact that has on people. You know, skills coaches who come to join us now, we want them to join the dream team. I'd like to think that we're really thorough. We don't have people coming for stopgaps. We have people coming to create careers. Yourself. You came as a skills coach. You're a lead skills coach. You know, there's other opportunities that come. So yeah, that was difficult, and I don't ever want to go back to that time again.
I bet.
So yeah.
But it's amazing how you've pivoted and come through that challenge, because again, everything that we're talking about, it's relatable. You know, people are going to experience these challenges, and
absolutely.
A lot of the time it's how we react and how we pivot to these challenges that makes us successful going forward. So being able to sort of share your story, and let's be honest, COVID was unprecedented. Do you know what I mean? It was absolutely unprecedented.
I'm sure there's so many other people who sit in my position who can come out with equally as challenging stories and stuff like that. It was not good.
But it's something that we've never experienced. I think the thing it was related to was the World War. That was like the impact on the economy. But in terms of, so that was the past. So where do you see Total in the next sort of 3 to 5 years?
Right, so get ready. One of the things that, because my background is a quality background, so I've always been invested in Ofsted and inspections and things. And I think for me, one of the things that before I bow out of my career is I would love to be outstanding. For someone to come in and recognise the amazing work my team do would be the absolute cherry on the cake for me. I've no aspirations of us becoming a national training provider. I haven't. and these are going to sound like really wishy-washy kind of goals. Obviously, I have a business plan. There's financial targets in there. I'm not going to bore you with those because they are what they are. However, I think for me to know that I have an organisation that does well by doing things good, and a team that are proud of the job they do, are passionate about what they do, and the users that we interact with who can say, I wouldn't have got here without that, or thanks ever so much, the skills that you've given me have enabled me to do this, that and the other. I also want to be able to ensure that people like myself or like you have that opportunity.
Yeah.
I'm a parent, I've got a 12-year-old daughter. I recognise things in her that I recognised in me. My daughter Scarlett, she's not your academic A-star kid, but she is smart, she is creative, she is a laugh a minute, sassy pants, but she's got some amazing skills and qualities that I hope through her educational journey are encouraged.
Yeah.
And if they're not, they need to be encouraged when she's coming to leave school, because I already know she will be phenomenal in whatever
Absolutely.
she does if encouraged in the right way.
Absolutely.
And that's what I want to do, give people that opportunity.
And that's it, and exactly, it's that opportunity. It's giving people that opportunity to grow their positive elements. So that brings to a close really nicely, like the actual podcast. If that's all right with you, Director. Lisa, thank you ever so much. Thank you ever so much
Thank you for taking it easy on me.
No, thank you ever so much for sharing your story. What an amazing story it is, the journey from your own education journey to sort of where you are now, and how much of an inspiration you can be to people. That's the whole principle of a podcast. I think if you take something from a podcast, you know, that's the beauty of it. You know, there was so much in terms of what we spoke about, but I love your passion. Absolutely love the leadership that you know, the passion of the leadership of the ship, as we said earlier. So thank you ever so much for your time.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So that's the end of the podcast. Thank you ever so much for listening, guys. In the next one, we'll have a lot more information, a lot more exciting stuff coming forward. We've got things.
Then I'm not excited.
No, absolutely. No. You're the one that we need to now top. So we've got in the future, we're looking at things.
Absolutely, yes. First podcast, last podcast, best podcast. That's it.
So we've got things like artificial intelligence, which we're going to be looking at. We're doing things on dyslexia. We're looking at things like menopause and menopause. We're going to look at things like cancer awareness and mental health. Mm-hmm. So we've got loads. We've got
Sounds
absolutely
great.
loads to.
Brilliant.
So thank you to our guests today. Thank you ever so much for you guys listening, because we can't do this without our listeners and our learners. If there's any particular topics you want us to discuss on the podcast, we're always open to discuss this. This is for you guys. This is for you, the listeners. Do remember to like, follow and subscribe on all our channels. And you know, leave us a comment on other comments. And if you're interested in any of the courses that we do, anything that's mentioned, please do reach out. info@total-tp.com. See you next time, guys.